In just 60 seconds, a huge Russian fuel train carrying 560 tons of diesel was blown to pieces. How did Ukrainian forces manage to hit a moving target that was supposed to be well protected? What does this mean for the future of warfare if cheap, homemade drones can do what million-dollar missiles do? Could Russia's supply lines be far more vulnerable than anyone thought? Well, let's get into the details that will blow your mind. What looked like just another supply run turned into a massive firestorm, and it wasn't by accident. Ukrainian forces carried out the strike with extreme accuracy, using just 3 FPV attack drones and a DJI Mavic 3 drone for reconnaissance. But how did they know exactly when and where to strike? It began days earlier, not with soldiers, but with civilians living under Russian occupation. Locals who tracked the train's movement every day, risking their lives. They carefully recorded its stops, speed changes, and the one crucial 15-minute window when it was out of range of Russian air defenses. This moment was the key to everything. These spotters used encrypted apps to pass real-time updates to Ukrainian forces without getting caught, even as Russian patrols swept the area with thermal cameras and signal detectors. The information helped identify exactly where the train would be most exposed, just long enough to plan a hit that could cause maximum damage. The train itself was no ordinary target. Its 8 connected tanker cars held enough diesel to keep 2 full Russian battalions, about 1,600 soldiers, fueled for 7 straight days. It was meant to keep tanks running, vehicles moving, and field bases powered. Cutting it off wouldn't just burn fuel, it would create instant supply problems across the front lines. Once the civilian-sourced intelligence was in place, Ukrainian tech experts got to work. They customized a DJI Mavic 3 drone for secret surveillance missions. With its high-quality Hasselblad L2D20C camera and thermal sensor, capable of detecting tiny heat differences as small as 0.05 degrees Celsius within 200 meters, it could spot the locomotive's heat even in darkness or smoke. Its zoom was enhanced to 56x through special firmware, allowing it to spot the train from a safe distance. The drone's communications were also encrypted, making it invisible to Russian aeroscope systems that search for drone signals. A backup Mavic 3 stood ready in case the first one failed. These drones streamed live video to the strike team while matching every detail to the reports coming from the ground. Timing had to be perfect. The Ukrainian team had identified the exact 15-minute period when the train would move through a 5-kilometer stretch with no Russian air defense coverage. Systems like the Pantsir S1, which can hit targets up to 20 kilometers away, were all out of range. The train was moving at 40 kilometers per hour on straight tracks but slowed to 25 on turns, so the team tracked it closely to know the precise moment to launch. Once the target was locked, the 3 FPV drones were deployed. These custom-made quadcopters had been stripped of all extras to boost speed and power. Each carried a 2.66 kilogram-shaped charge, powerful enough to punch through 22 millimeters of steel, more than enough to blast through the train's 12-millimeter thick tank walls. Controlled by F7 flight systems and Betaflight software, these drones could dive at speeds of 140 kilometers per hour. They were built for agility, capable of dodging small arms fire and flying directly into chaos without losing direction. Russia didn't sit idle. It used the LER-3 electronic warfare system to jam drone signals over a 30-kilometer area. This system uses 2 types of jamming: broad interference to block everything and spot jamming to target specific drone bands like 2.4 gigahertz. But Ukrainian engineers had already anticipated this. Their drones used frequency-hopping technology to change signals hundreds of times per second across different bands, making jamming nearly impossible. And even if signals were blocked, the drones weren't blind. They relied on internal IMUs, devices that used accelerometers and gyroscopes to track movement without GPS. In the last 15 seconds before impact, the drones switched to the visual targeting, using smart algorithms trained to recognize the exact shape of Russian fuel tankers. So even with all the jamming, they kept going, locked in on their targets. The first drone slammed into the third tanker car. Its warhead, packed with a tungsten cone, formed a jet of molten metal moving at more than 30,000 feet per second. It blasted through the steel and set off a fireball that burned at 2,500 degrees Celsius. The fuel exploded instantly, and the heat spread through the tank ventilation systems to the next cars. Within 15 seconds, 4 of them were on fire. The second drone then hit the 6th car, which hadn't caught fire yet. Using its thermal optics, it identified the cooler tank and hit it dead on, igniting another 69 tons of diesel. The third drone, relying on its onboard vision system, targeted the 8th and final car, which triggered the last explosion. The combined fire fed by all 560 tons of diesel created a towering inferno. Heat pulled in air from all directions, forming a giant plume of smoke and fire stretching up to 200 meters. Smoke swirled and formed a burning vortex. The surrounding tracks twisted in the heat. Wooden rail ties disintegrated, and scattered metal from the explosion tore up the ground. Leaking diesel soaked into the soil, making the area a hazardous mess. Fixing the railway isn't just about laying down new tracks. The heat damage to steel and the environmental fallout will take weeks to clear. Diesel in the ground and water creates a toxic cleanup job. And all this happened with drones that cost far less than a single cruise missile. A Kaliber missile costs more than $1 million. The entire drone operation, drones, cameras, explosives, modifications, probably cost under $50,000, yet the impact was massive. Russia lost a fuel train meant to support 2 full battalions. Supply lines were forced to reroute through roads that are slower, carry less fuel, and are easier for Ukraine to attack. Just one train carried 560 tons. Replacing that would need 19 tanker trucks, each holding 30 tons. That's 19 more chances for Ukrainian drones or artillery to hit them. And since trucks need fuel and protection too, it only piles more pressure on Russia's military. The disruption throws off timelines, delays offensives, and weakens their ability to move fast. The destruction of the fuel train instantly caused problems for Russia's military supply network. That train was one of several responsible for delivering fuel to forward bases across Zaporizhzhia Oblast, an area Russia depends on to hold its position in southern Ukraine. With that rail route out of service, fuel now had to move by truck. But trucks aren't fast, can't carry as much, and are easier to target. One truck carries only about 30 tons of fuel, so 19 would be needed to haul the same 560 tons that the train did. These convoys also need drivers, guards, and fuel of their own just to move, putting more pressure on an already stretched military. Delays quickly started affecting Russian units in the region, especially as tanks and vehicles began running low on fuel, and generators stopped powering equipment. But it wasn't just the loss of fuel, it was the shock that came with it. Ukrainian forces recorded the attack using high-quality video from the Mavic 3 drone, capturing each blast in sharp detail. The footage was passed around among Ukrainian units and then posted online. It showed every explosion and every moment of the firestorm, becoming both a symbol of success and a warning. For Russian troops, it was a harsh reminder that they weren't safe, not even far from the fighting. What was supposed to be a routine delivery deep in their own area had turned into a fireball. That fear spread fast. The strike proved how effective small, low-cost weapons can be when paired with good information. The FPV drones used in the attack weren't high-budget military tech. They were built from regular parts, upgraded with special software, and made to fly fast and hit hard. While Russia relied on expensive systems like the LER-3 for jamming, those weren't enough. Ukraine's drones didn't rely only on GPS. They could jump between frequencies and use internal tools to guide themselves when GPS was blocked. These changes exposed serious flaws in Russia's defenses, which weren't built to stop drones this advanced. The LER-3 was made to stop older types of drones using predictable signals. These new ones didn't follow those patterns. The attack also showed how everyday people are now part of how wars are fought. The spotters who tracked the train weren't soldiers. They were civilians living under occupation who knew their surroundings. Using only encrypted apps and basic phones, they sent valuable information without getting caught. Their updates were just as important as the drones themselves. It's no longer just armies facing each other. Locals are playing key roles, especially in areas where the front lines aren't clear. The Mavic 3 drone used to record the strike wasn't meant for war when it was made. It was built for photography. But Ukraine turned it into a stealthy scout, adding thermal sensors and encryption. The FPV drones, built from scratch, were fast, accurate, and packed with explosives that were tuned for maximum damage. Because they were small, under 50 centimeters across, they were hard to spot on radar, slipping through defenses easily. This ability to build powerful tools without spending huge amounts allowed Ukraine to act quickly and at scale. The impact of this attack didn't go unnoticed by other militaries. The old method of defending big targets like tanks and bases doesn't work well against small, fast drones. Being able to strike a moving target deep in enemy space raised serious concerns. Russia now faces a huge problem, keeping thousands of kilometers of railways safe. That means installing drone sensors and counter systems everywhere, which costs a lot, takes time, and pulls resources away from the battlefield. There was also an environmental cost. Not all the diesel burned off in the explosion. Some of it soaked into the soil and may have reached water sources. Cleaning it up won't be easy. Special equipment will be needed, and it could take months to restore the site. That slows down any chance of getting the railway working again. Polluted groundwater could harm nearby communities, adding to the pressure. Russia now has to handle that while also preparing for more attacks. What stood out most was how something so small had such a big effect. This one strike, carried out with drones that cost about $15,000 each, achieved the kind of destruction that would normally need a full airstrike or missile barrage. Missiles like Kaliber cost millions. The drones were cheap but smart, making them ideal for countries that don't have massive budgets. The math makes things clear. Why spend millions when tens of thousands can get the same result? This also proved how quickly Ukraine could adapt. Their tech teams created new firmware, better signal systems, and visual targeting tools based on what was happening right then. These changes weren't developed in labs over years. They were made and tested on the fly. That speed let Ukraine stay ahead, while Russia's systems, built through slower processes, couldn't catch up. The strike didn't just hit the train, it targeted the specific cars most likely to spread the fire. Each shaped charge was tuned to blast through the tanker wall, just enough to cause an explosion without losing power. This precise targeting made sure every hit added to the chain reaction. What made it more surprising was that the drones didn't even need GPS. In the final moments, they switched to vision-only guidance, locking onto the shapes of the fuel tankers using onboard cameras and software. Even if Russia had jammed every signal, it wouldn't have mattered. Russia's railways were already vulnerable. Trains are big, long, and slow, making them easy to spot and hard to hide. A single train can be over a kilometer in length, giving attackers plenty of time to act. Russia depends on these lines to move fuel and ammo because they can move large amounts quickly. But now, every train is a possible target. This attack wasn't the first, but it was the most intense. Ukraine had already hit storage sites and smaller trains, but this strike was on a different level. The strike depended on one key thing: getting humans and machines to work together perfectly. Local civilians, hiding in plain sight, quietly watched the fuel train for days, gathering every detail they could. These spotters risked their lives tracking its path, timing, and location. Their updates were used by drone operators flying Mavic 3 drones, which confirmed the exact target using powerful zoom lenses and thermal vision, while avoiding Russian tracking systems. Then came the final move: 3 FPV drones, each built for speed and loaded with custom explosives, flew in and struck at full force. One part that raised eyebrows was Russia's electronic warfare system. The fire spread from one car to the next, helped by the train's own design. It was clear that the strike wasn't just powerful, it was built around deep research into how to make one hit turn into several. For more such videos, do subscribe to our channel.